Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Talkin Torque. My name's Colin Livingston. We do this show every Thursday afternoon. Bounce between the world of industrial stuff and racing, and once in a while we kind of dip into some of the other world. Tonight we've got one of my good friends, as I read on the bio earlier today, Canadian radio royalty.
Where did you read that?
Mr. Lochlin. What's going on, man?
Not much. I appreciate this. I don't know anything about racing.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't think we're going to talk about racing.
Yeah.
We can if you want.
Less than nothing. I will be honest with you. Yeah. I've never been into it at all.
That's fine. We can still be friends anyway. That's not a requirement.
The thing with me, like I find it interesting when I meet people that are like obsessed with something, because I'm not. Like, I can't think of anything. I'm jealous of people with a thing, right? I like sports, but I'm not obsessed with it, right?
Yeah. I
like movies, but I'm not obsessed with any particular genre. Right. I don't have any weird hobbies. I don't have a truck in the garage that I'm, monkey wrenching on. Like, I got none of that.
Yeah.
I'm just a workaholic. That's it.
Well, and is that actually true? Because when you were into golf, you were quite obsessed with golf.
I don't know about that. I was trying to get better, but I wasn't playing. I was playing like once a week, maybe, right? Where guys, I wasn't going to the driving range for 2 hours every night.
It was more than once a week.
You think so?
Yeah. It was.
I think one year I got like 35 rounds in.
Yeah, we're going to go out to this track. We're going to go to that. Like, it was 2 in a weekend. It was, hey, let's go over to the Garrison. Let's get over to,
I don't know if I ever
Trestle Creek.
2 in a weekend. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay. Well, that's fine. I'm not here to call anyone a liar. It just maybe that was just my perception. But you kind of moved away from golf, but now you're kind of getting back into it.
I'm golfing in the summer when, it's like, it's more of a social thing.
Yeah.
Right. And we had a promotion with Goose Hummock this year, the Locks Lost Balls. So
I saw that. Yeah.
I was going out. So I think I golfed at Goose 6 times or something like that, and maybe 2 other courses. So I think I got 7, 8, 9 rounds in this year. That's it. That's pretty casual.
I think I've only played Goose Hummock one time in my life. That was there's a trophy beside there's a trophy with the helmet, the big gold helmet.
Yeah.
And then, like, 2 over is a little blue base trophy that I played there in the. One of our customers, one of the projects we worked on in like 1999, held their year-end golf tournament at Goose Hummock, and we won.
I had this idea before the summer that it was like literally you had to take a canoe from hole to hole. But that was just a memory, because I hadn't golfed the Goose until this year, probably 5-6 years. I hadn't been up there.
Yeah.
And they've got a new manager, so he was doing some promotion with the station. So. And it's not that far. It's a great track, and it's not as much water as I thought it was. I had this like memory that it was just. I think the first time I played it, I think I lost like 6 balls in the water. So you walk away thinking, the whole course is water. You're losing that many balls.
Yeah. See, I was never worried about the water there. I just remember it being a lot of target golf. Like.
Yeah.
You can't grab driver because the fairway narrows at like 250 yards. So you're kind of forced to play like a short club off the tee, and then you've got to kind of hit into this area, and then you get up. There's a lot of that out there.
Yeah. Unless you're arrogant and you think you're gonna, hit the dog leg with your driver.
Yeah.
At 250.
It's possible. I don't actually remember the last time you and I golfed. We used to get
it was
a couple
up
rounds.
Where you were up, and you're still up. Your golf course
at Blackhawk.
Blackhawk, yeah. I've been there maybe twice with you, I think.
At least
2-3 times, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, we used to at least get out once a year.
You didn't golf this year up there, did you?
I played 3 rounds. One was in a tournament.
All right.
Yeah, I played in the the Special Olympics tournament, and then I played 2 casual rounds. That was it. Yeah. For a friend, Positive Mike, that's watching along, he's complaining about echo, so I'm not sure how my levels are all screwed up that it's echoing for him. But Locke's enjoying a TKO there, Mike. So we're giving you the
cheers, Mike.
Giving you some love online. Those are the first Mike. Mike's been great. I mean, I've got a case of beer sitting on the floor there, but I can't really drink beer anymore because of gout. So I let myself have one beer, maybe, I mean, maximum 6 weeks. But
does it flare up badly?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's miserable. I can't lay in bed with like a sheet on my ankle. It's too painful. So,
it's in your ankle and not your foot?
Ankle, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And a little bit in my knee.
Have you taken the meds?
Yep.
And
I'm on a daily thing, but even with that, I don't need a beer that badly to take a chance. It's probably been 4 years, 3 years for sure, 4 years since I've actually had a flare up. So I avoid shellfish, I avoid asparagus, I avoid beer, like all the triggers, and yeah, because trying to deal with that kind of pain it's no fun.
I've had a couple of friends of mine that had it, and it's supposed to be the worst. Was that also when you quit eating meat? Was it gout? You said you were allergic to.
Yeah.
That was the gout thing.
That was, yeah. Somebody led me down the road to believe that I had an allergy to meat, and if I had eliminated meat, that would, help. And I mean, I tried it, but
it didn't.
I need to, I don't want to get into a argument on what the best diet is, but for me, I'm a lot happier if I can have some chicken, have some steak, have some, lots of fish and all that. I mean, things are kind of back to normal, but instead of beer, I've got this. So a little bit of tequila and a little bit of vodka, and
okay, yeah. There you go. Yeah, no, I drink a lot of beer.
Well, I
think it would be that would be a life-ending thing for me to get killed.
Like you'd be suicidal.
I shouldn't exactly. But no, I really like beer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But knock on whatever. A lot of times it's not the alcohol though that gets you. It's a diet thing with the gout, right?
Well, gout is how your body processes uric acid. So uric acid is a natural thing, and for most people, it's just expelled. Like it gets produced, it gets expelled. For someone like me, it gets stored. It turns from acid into these crystals. Like if you can imagine these like jagged razor, like just brutal crystals, and they tend to get deposited in joints. Some people get it in toes, some in ankles, knees, all over the place.
Really? Okay.
So imagine like just having this abrasive thing in your joint, and that's what it's like in my ankles. Like that just happens. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, like for sure.
We had a boss who used to get it all the time. It's quite common for radio people to get gout because of our lifestyles, and he would miss work.
Yeah,
like he would stay home.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt it. Like I said, like I'll be in bed.
I shouldn't be laughing at your goat.
No, it's kind of funny because it's really self-induced. Like
yes,
it's like people who get crazy hangovers. You don't really get hungover.
You know what? The thing is, like my drinking problem is also sort of tempered, and I mean this truly. We joke about how much we drink. Jimmy drinks a lot on the show,
especially pound for pound.
Yes, especially pound for pound, and we do drink a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to downplay how much we drink, but I have always been a very lightweight. It doesn't take me much to get drunk, so I'm also the first one. I'm the last one at the party, and I'm the first one to leave. Yeah. Always.
Yeah.
You know that. And so I can't abuse myself. And I've been like that my whole life, even in my 20s. I'd have 6 beer and I'm done. Like I have to tap out.
Yeah.
I've got lots of friends that don't have that off switch, that once they start going, once they punch it, right?
It's go time.
It's go time, and they
and then you have to win drinking.
Yes. See, you have a little bit of that.
I do, and from time to time it still manifests itself. If you get me on an airplane, like, and especially when I get my business class upgrades where they just keep filling your glass, it's like it's game on. Like, because I mean, unless I have to drive when I land, but generally when I get somewhere, someone's picking me up or I stay at the airport. Like, that's just kind of my move. So I know it's a good time. But the older I get, the less that happens. Not to say it doesn't. I mean, I was just at my cousin's wedding in Ontario, and we
got into it.
Wow, we drank everything that Ontario had to offer. It was awesome, and we had a great time, and we were hanging. But it also turned into a super spreader, and we all walked away with COVID. So, maybe it's not the best thing, but no. The older I get, the less it's required. And like I'm about to turn 50, so later on this year I hit my milestone. You crossed it.
Yeah, I'm 53.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I already decided next year I'm gonna get back into some more serious racing. So I'm gonna get back into my bigger go-kart, my tougher one in bigger races. I'm gonna do some more US stuff, which means that effectively I'm back in training. Like I never stop. I do like 3 sessions a week with my personal trainer.
Yeah.
They're hour-long sessions. We go like crazy, but it's going to be like 3 sessions with him. I'm going to do individual sessions, like just go in and do treadmill stuff. I'm going to be, upping massages.
You need the cardio, right?
You need cardio, you need strength, you need durability, and you need to be light. Being big, it's not like hockey where you can be stronger. Like you need to, like you've met Alex and you've met, they're
tiny.
5'4", 150 pounds. I'll never, like, the only way I can get to 150 pounds is if you cut me in half. There is no way that I could get that low.
I don't know about that, Colin, man. I've seen some remarkable weight loss stuff in the last couple of years. Dean.
Yeah.
Dude, he's lost 50 pounds.
Yeah.
He's like below 200, and he's my height. He's 6'4".
But below 200, that's doable. If I'm peak everything and I get max efficient, I can get down to probably about 190, maybe 195.
How tall are you? You're 5'11"?
5'9", 5'10". But I'm fairly broad. I do carry a lot of muscle, which is what fat people always like to say. But I carry a reasonable amount of muscle. I've got a pretty big skeletal mass, and like. That being said, if I can get back down around 195, 200 pounds, that puts me in a really good range, because you still have to have a minimum weight in karting. Like if you're 160 pounds, a guy like Alex, if he gets into the shifter cart, he's got to bolt 30 pounds of weight on just to make sure that
just to keep
minimum, to get to the minimum weight. So I can do it more naturally, but getting that conditioning back, but this isn't about me. We're here to talk about you tonight.
No,
I don't want to, just to answer Mike's question, no, not going for the Worlds, just doing some more of the fun events down in the States. But
that's cool.
You talked about radio, and obviously that's what you're known for. You're a radio guy. Now we'll get into radio, but I want to know, how does a guy from Yak, BC, get into radio? Like, what was it like that kind of wet your whistle? And
I was in Creston, Yak. We lived just outside of town, but I went to school in Creston. And at that time, I remember I started telling people that I wanted to get into radio, but I had decent grades, so I was on the honor roll. And you talk to your counselors in a small town with 4,000 people in it, 3,500 people. The radio guy it's not something to aspire to. The guy that works at the AM radio station. So there was a little bit of, I don't know, steering me in another path kind of conversations when, you're sitting down having discussions with counselors and whatnot about your future. And then I kind of caved a bit because I had a couple bursaries. I had some money coming to me. for grades and whatnot. Doesn't matter. I went to Selkirk College in Castlegar, so I'm there for whatever 3/4 of the year. And I remember sitting with a buddy, on a patio having a drink, and I was telling him that how much I disliked what I was doing. And he goes, "Well, what did you want to do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I always wanted to get into radio." And he goes, "Well, you have your own car, you're renting your own place, you pay your own bills."
That's the requirement for radio?
Well, no, just you make your own decisions, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So I packed up the Toyota and I headed to Vancouver, and I got into the Academy of Broadcast Arts right away. BCIT turned me down. I went back the following year because I didn't feel like I was ready to start putting tapes together. And then the whole time I was there, I was doing college radio. I worked at CJIVE, which is the campus radio station at SFU. And I did like a weekend blues show and would hang out at the Yale Hotel and record blues guys for my show. And so I did that kind of stuff. And I think obviously BCIT, the radio program, was a little more difficult to get in back in the day. They realized I was serious, so they let me in that next year. I did 2 years, and then I started to apply for jobs towards the end of the 2 years, and I got a couple of interviews. One was in Edson, Alberta at YR Radio. I always affectionately refer to it as Why Are You Listening Radio. And they hired me to do it. Yeah, they hired me to do evenings. And I was there for 8 months. And I saw a job posting in Fort McMurray. And the reason it was intriguing to me, it was rock. So I was like, okay, this will give me an opportunity to get into the rock format. So I went up there. That was a bit of a mistake. We don't want to get too sidetracked here, but that the couple of guys that ran that company up there were criminals and literally should have been in jail for what they were doing to their staff. And it was just, I used to go to my way for years. So it's all different. It's all changed now.
So many people have gone through Fort Mac.
Like, yeah, and every single one of them has the exact same story.
The same story, yeah. Because Dean did it. Like our good friend Dean Blundell, we're being broadcast on.
Tough when he was out there.
Yeah, we're being broadcast on the Crier Network right now, where you do a secondary show with Dean. Yeah. I was just thinking of 2 other people that I know that went through there. But anyway, like so many
Styles down in Calgary. Yeah, sports radio.
Didn't Cub do that?
Cub was up in Fort Mac. I think it's also it's one of 2 things. You either get your start and cut your teeth, or you do something awful and you get sent there. So Cub
get relegated to.
Cub was the latter.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't know like for the longest because I'm a big Cub Carson fan. From his days.
I don't know what he's doing now. We hired him back at Cruise when he was up in Fort McMurray.
Yeah.
And he kind of went a little off the rails, I think, with some stuff and ended up running train. I think he became a train engineer.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. But there's another dude in radio that goes by Cub Carson.
He's back east.
Yeah.
And I don't know which one's first. They both say that they came up with the name first.
Yeah.
So I have no idea.
But were you working at the Bear when Cub was at the Bear?
No.
My God, he was brilliant. Like back in the days that they actually had a sports guy, so he would do a sports segment, like he'd do a hit every hour, doing sports on the morning show, and was like brilliant.
Yeah. I've heard good things. I don't really remember that show, but I remember hearing that show he was on with her. There was a couple of incarnations of that.
I think he at the end. I think he was with Paul Brown and Jill before you. I think.
Really?
I'm not. I can't say 100%, but
okay.
That's the way I remember it anyway.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So anyway, I ended up in Edson. Then I ended up in Fort Mac. I quit. Yeah. Again, long story. Don't need to go down that path. I went to Prince George for a couple of years, and then I wanted to get into programming because I was having kids and buying houses and stuff like that, and the money is really, really rough. So at least the guy that's the program director that's running the radio station, at least that guy has a car, right? Yeah. So I had aspirations to get into programming, and there was a music director's job opening up in Winnipeg, so I went there. I ended up on the air there as well. I ended up doing afternoon drive, and by the end of my time there, I was also the program director. So program director is like the station manager or whatever the hell you want to call it. And I got an opportunity to get into programming. I came here to Edmonton, and I did K-Rock. I ran K-Rock for 16 months before they shit canned me, walked me out. And in the car on my way home, my buddy who worked at the Bear, I was in a band with him, called me. I had just got fired. I'm in my car to go home, and my phone rings, and I'm like, hello? And he goes, hey, I heard you just got fired. Can you do the Snarb this weekend? Do you remember the Saturday night all request Bear Bash?
Yeah. Of course.
So I literally got fired on the Wednesday, and by Saturday I was on the air at the Bear playing requests.
Yeah.
Doing a live show from 6 till midnight. And then that was at the beginning of the summer, and then everyone took vacation. I ended up on the air doing every shift at the Bear for 45 days straight. So that led
workaholic.
to well, I just lost a job. I had kids.
Yep.
I was working. So you put your nose to the grindstone. And I got out of program, promised my wife I wouldn't do that anymore because it almost killed me. So as much as I am angry at the company for firing me, I was also very thankful. It was complicated. It was hard to digest because I knew that they had saved my life because it was such a horrible place. It just sucked the life out of me, that building in the mall. Oh, anyway, I rebounded and stayed on air, and I've avoided any form of management since. So that would have been 2008 that I got shit canned, and I've been on the air ever since. So
which is
the
funny
Bear Cruise, right?
I just left them all. I'm still doing the sports hit with Gregor, and now they've got the AM station 1440.
So that's the Wetaskiwin signal, I think, right?
That's where the tower is, and that was where the station was really located. They bought that license, and the studio was in the mall, but they broadcast out of Wetaskiwin.
So
I transmit,
Like I haven't picked it up. Like I haven't listened to it. Can you get it in your car? They must have turned the signal to because
they're working on it. There's a lot of. I haven't listened on the radio for a long time, but I just use the app through the radio player app, and it works perfect. So if I want to catch
that bypasses the signal, right? The tower, so you're not.
It's all over the internet.
They punch out two signals from the station, so. And a lot of sports listeners listen like that anyway. So I thought it was weird that they turned that off over there, the bell. Like that, it's crazy. I've heard
the way that they did it that just.
Yeah, but they never do it right. I mean, these big companies, they don't get points for how they fire. None of them. No. So it's.
But Tuesday morning, like they didn't even wait till Friday. Like they didn't let the station go through its natural thing. Pull everyone in at the end of the day or send out an email and say, guys, listen, we're not coming back on Monday. We'll give you a weekend to kind of, get ready for all the media hit and all the stuff that all the questions you're going to field. It was just like, go to commercial, gone. And then every trace of the station was gone.
Yeah.
The website was down, the email stopped working, like
everything.
Yeah. I mean, my son came to me because we were still doing the racing thing with Gregor. And he's like, well, I guess that was the last race report. I'm like, no, we're still doing it. He's like, I don't think you are. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like the station's gone. I'm like, what do you mean the station's gone?
Bizarre.
Yeah.
So I've heard a couple of different stories. The one that I think has the most, and I can talk about this because I'm not connected with these companies. So if you bring somebody else on that that was there or whatever, they probably have an opinion or whatnot. I don't have an opinion because I didn't lose my job. I do have an opinion because I think it's a sad thing for the state of the business. But what I heard was, and this is all speculation, this is all conjecture, but I heard that was it 8 or 10 stations they unplugged, something like
in that
neighborhood. And so if it was 8 stations they unplugged, they sold 2 of the signals.
Yep.
And they shut 6 off, like gone.
Yep.
And somebody did some work behind the scenes and dug up ownership of towers and things like that as a possibility, like as a reason why they might have done it, because it's unprecedented. Just that it's so difficult to get these signals and these licenses, and then just to walk away from them. It's It's crazy, absolutely insane. So, but if you look at the structure of each one of those stations and where their towers are and the land where the towers are, the two they sold, they were renting the space on land they didn't own. This is, again, I repeat, total speculation. The 6 they turned off, they owned the land. And the land is in pretty valuable territory, like Ontario, right? Edmonton. It's worth, Vancouver, it's worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so just keeping the lights on and making whatever profit you are from one of the radio stations doesn't even remotely touch the money they could make from the possibility of selling the land.
Yeah, see, and I think you're in the right
area
venue, but what I heard is that the tower in Edmonton, like specifically to TSN 1260, that tower had to be upgraded, and they didn't want to make the investment because the tower's like
tons of
it's
money.
like $1.5 million or something like that, and that's why the.
But that goes into the like there has to be something to the fact that the 2 they sold, they were renting.
Right.
The 6 they shut off, they own the land and they own the towers.
Yeah, but if the tower's not worth anything in that, like, because otherwise, why wouldn't you just sell the station? You know, if your tower's gonna, like, because then you take the TSN 1260 signal, but then you have to build your own tower, and nobody really wants that.
Yeah,
you're right. Because there was, like, obviously, there was a big listenership, and sports radio is always going to be
and you know
popular,
what? I will say this. I mean, I didn't get a chance to listen as much as the regular sports fan does, but man, and comparatively, I mean, I wasn't an expert of all the other radio stations that got shut off, but it was quite commonly said out loud that this station in Edmonton, TSN 1260, had probably the best talent in the country, right, and the best shows.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I'm not saying the other ones didn't. I'm just saying they looked at Edmonton with some reverence, right? And they had a really strong fall. Well, look at the success Gregor's having over on 1440, and
but even Dusty and those guys on Edmonton Talk Radio,
they're killing.
They're podcasting, and because people, this is a sports city.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if it's football, hockey, racing, like, and more than that, people here give a shit about local sports. They want to hear about, the Edmonton Huskies. They want to hear about the cheerleading program. They want to hear about, this team that went to the badminton world finals in, Seoul. Like,
there's real pride for local.
Yeah, people love it. For some reason, at one point a second ago, there was a bunch of balloons throwing, like, digital balloons getting thrown in front of your face. I didn't do it.
Okay.
Something to do with the app. I don't know what's going on.
All right. So, congratulations. Thank you. Woo.
It's well, it made you look good. It made you look good. Have you ever had an opportunity that was presented to you that you didn't take that you regret?
In radio?
It doesn't matter. Maybe somebody asked you to be on Dancing with the Stars. I don't know.
No, I can't think of anything that has come my way that I said no to, that after the fact turned out to be a bad idea. I also try not to regret the decisions that I made because over time, I'm 53 now. I've kind of learned to take what I've learned from these things and make the best out of it. Like what I went through sort of shaped me as a broadcaster, right? Yeah,
as much as you might not believe this, I do as much research as I can. It doesn't matter who the guest is, whether I know you, don't know you.
Yeah.
You made a comment in one article that I read that you've only legitimately been fired one time.
Yeah.
Which in the world of radio is unheard of.
Well, and for me, I think everybody thinks I just get fired all the time, but I haven't. I'm actually, and it took me a long time to recover from being fired from a job I knew that was killing me. Like I chewed on that for a long time.
I'm still chewing on getting fired, and this is what it got turned into. That was 23 years ago, October 26th.
Revenge is an excellent motivator.
I hated failing. I hated it. Because I knew I didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't the right fit. And while it turned into something great, I still hate it. It's like
choose on you. It's a rejection thing.
23 years, like almost half my life ago, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah. My wife at one point, she sat me down and said, "You're gonna have to let it go. You're in a way better place. Like, don't you see that?"
Which is funny.
And when I heard that from somebody else, being very not self-aware for a lot of years, I think. Do you think the echo is that button that's on there, the 4?
No, because there's no mic there.
Okay, all right.
We can mute them all out.
Okay, there you go. All right, try that. Yeah.
But there's no mics on those channels.
Yeah. Anyway, I can't hear an echo. I'm just worried that there might still be an echo.
Yeah.
So where was I?
Talking to Deb, and she said,
yeah. You have to let it go. And she was right. At some point, I had to stop being angry about something that actually ended up being a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So
but the ends don't necessarily justify the means, and I know what she's saying, because there's not a lot of positive that comes out of those feelings, but those feelings are natural, and you don't, guys like you and me don't necessarily forget when someone does us wrong. You get fired because either you've done something wrong or somebody made the wrong choice. And like, if I do something wrong, I have no problem owning it, admitting it, acknowledging it, and then trying to do better in the future. But that sting won't go away.
What I do now, like if I get myself into a situation that I feel like I may have overreacted or whatever, I'll walk away and I kind of look back at it and try to adjust my behavior, right?
Yeah.
But I've always done that, and I've always felt like I was a reasonable person and easy to work with. But that's not the reputation.
But that's your perception of you. That's not necessarily what people will come back and say to you.
And that's.
And I'm not saying that they don't say that, but.
No, I know my reputation,
yeah.
And it doesn't match up to what my view of it is in my head, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I continue to learn things about myself, right? Like, you end up in a situation where you made conflict situation, you didn't handle it well.
But you're built for conflict.
Am I?
You are. You. I mean, I see a lot of my personality traits in how you deal with stuff. Like, when things start going sideways, you're not the kind that just kind of folds. You kind of rise to a challenge. You are able to take a look at a situation and say, okay, this is the way we're going to go. You make a decision, whether it's grandstanding, posturing.
Yeah.
You got that, and you have no issue with creating whether it's a radio, conflict, or it's an actual conflict. You have no problem.
And the older I get, the more I realize that the whole world is just, they avoid conflict. Everybody.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, because.
And sometimes you can't.
You and I have that tendency. I went through a lot of counseling. Like, I went through a lot of work with a person that made me understand that, like, most people hate conflict. They do everything in their power to avoid it. I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
See, I legitimately thought that I was put on the planet to tell everybody the truth.
Yeah.
That was my ego.
Yeah.
And that is not what people want.
But that's also a personality type.
Yes.
And that, again, when you get into
30.
Yeah.
No one gives a flying fuck about my version of the truth. That was one of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn. And so that one, that was, like I said, that was 30. That was right about the time I was getting into management.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, worst job on the planet. Avoid it at all costs. Save yourself. Yes. No. You.
Kind of tough, but.
You have your own business. Different.
It's still the same. It's not. It is, but it isn't, because we still have to, like, I still have to deal with staff. I mean, I won't talk about the staffing issues that I've dealt with in the last year, like, publicly, because I just won't throw that out there. But when you hear the stories, or if you hear the stories, like, it'll make your head explode.
Well, and that's a big part of the reason why I'm so baffled by the world we live in right now.
Yeah.
Like, I've gone out of my way to, and I got fired. and so I can sit there and stew on that. But you don't fire me. I show up every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like I never call in sick. We were sitting in my former boss's office about a year ago, and he was upset about somebody in the building. We won't mention any names, but he was mad because this person had called in sick again. And then he told us how many times that person had called in sick in the 8 months that individual had been in the building.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. It was in the 20s. And
in
8 months, 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, we sat there and did the math. There's 4 of us in the room, program director who's been in the business for as long as I have, 30 plus years.
That's in your current building or the
current building? Yeah. Yeah. We're having a morning show meeting. So it's me, Jimmy, Grant, and I don't know how many years we got. We got 80 plus years experience in that. And in the last 80 years of experience in that room, but we did the math. We had literally, I think, 9 or 10 days of vacation or sick days.
Yeah.
In our whole time.
Yeah.
And she had doubled it.
Yeah.
This person had doubled it in 8 months.
In a fraction of the time.
Yeah. And people, that person was getting promotions and things. Like the world we live in today just baffles me to no end. I will never understand it. All this effort and time and energy you put into being a good employee, you bust your ass, and then you watch somebody just completely take advantage of every situation. And management has to deal with that. How do you rationalize that? I can't. You can't put me in charge of people where there's that kind of opposition, that kind of imbalance in a workplace.
It's
I'd lose my mind.
I've done a couple of monologues like on this podcast. I've done a couple, like even with Dean. I said the same thing, but I believe, aside from work ethic, there's always been lazy people. I get it, but I think we're being tricked into fighting with each other. We're being tricked into being way more divisive. That you've got to identify as a label. You've got to be a conservative. You've got to be a liberal.
Yeah.
Like, well, what's your politics? What do you mean? What's my politics? Like, are you conservative or are you like here in Canada? Are you Democrat or are you Republican? Like, why? Because that sums up who I am by that one word.
Yeah.
Like,
I had this exact fight on Twitter this morning.
It doesn't make sense, but we're being tricked into being divisive instead of realizing that we actually agree on way more things than we disagree on.
Yes.
This is kind of a function of my age now, but there's so many things that don't make sense. Like right now, what you're talking about falls into the thing that I see so much of is, well, if you're a business owner, you got to be an asshole and you've got to be exploiting your staff. But if your staff, kind of do don't kill yourself for a job because your boss doesn't care. Don't kill yourself. What the hell is this? Like one of my friends from a long time ago, and we still talk to this day, said the best job security you could ever have is working yourself into a position that your company can't live without you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that makes a lot of sense. Work really hard. Company should see what it is. And if they don't, you probably don't want to be there anyway, and you'll likely find somewhere else to go.
Yeah.
But right now, it's crazy that people seem to think that they can just show up. They want to get treated like they're the world's most important person.
Yeah.
But they don't give you 1% over a 40-hour week, Monday to Friday.
It's a very narcissistic society that we live in now. Yeah.
In general, but I think more people are on the other side. We get convinced that these people are out there because we see a little bit more of them, and I don't know. It makes me crazy. It will literally.
Well, it sounds like you're dealing with it better than I am. But the argument I had on Twitter this morning, and I know you're off of it, but
I'm off.
I had made a comment about it was a joke. Danielle Smith announced today that she's given everybody a break on insurance. And the hypocrisy of that is that the UCP is responsible actually for lifting the cap, and it's coming off again in January. So your insurance rates are going to go up. Unless, of course, and she masks it. She doesn't put the cap back on. She masks it by presenting it to the public as this, I'm rewarding good drivers.
Right.
If you've never had a ticket, you're your rate's only going to go up 3%. So she comes out, stumps, makes herself look good because she's rewarding good drivers. But at the end of the day, she's screwing everybody by not just putting a cap on an industry that is already taking advantage of the population. Right. And so I made a comment about how is this Justin's fault? Because she also was very good at making everything the federal government's fault. And the thing is, I am not liberal. I lean way more conservative.
Yeah.
Somebody came after me and said I was stumping for Trudeau. And I said, well, I'm not a liberal and I've never voted liberal. Just because I have a problem with the decision that was made by the UCP doesn't actually put me. And this individual just kept going, so I ended up blocking them. But the point I'm making is, you're right about the labels. If you have an agreement or disagreement with one side or the other, everyone throws you into this camp immediately and stamps you with some kind of a label. And there's days on my show, on the locker room, I get labeled liberal, and then I get labeled a right-wing nut.
100%.
Every day, I get
both sides.
Which
isn't even close to true.
No, it isn't. I am like probably 75% of this province and this country that is in the middle, that holds their nose when they go in to vote. Every provincial and every federal election will leave the civic politics out of it. But you go in there and you pick one that might align with your values, but you're never really there. We have zero representation for the middle of this country. And you and I have talked about this. You and I we'll hear things, policies will come down, and you and I will have a very similar take on it. And it doesn't make us liberal or conservative or Republican or Democrat to realize both sides are trying to screw you. They just do it differently.
But that's the thing that I've started to realize more and more the older I get, and this whole idea that we're being tricked into fighting with each other, is that the older I get, the more socialist ideas I have.
Yeah.
I'm programmed as a conservative, like not within the party, but just from that platform.
You're fiscally responsible. You're conservative minded. I am too.
Better with my money than giving it to someone else and letting them decide what to do with it. But at the same time, I also, I don't want to see people starving, and I don't want to see people homeless, and I want the roads to be decent, and and I could make a joke about bike lanes, but that one's been played like way too far.
Yeah.
But I don't mind that part of my money goes to somebody else.
No,
I don't mind, like as a business owner, I don't mind that. As there's a lot about that I do mind as a business owner, because what we pay just in property taxes here is disgusting. And we get exactly zero service.
I would like to see what you pay and compare it to what Kate's pays for all the.
But I don't want to get into one over the other. Like the whole idea is, I pay the city of Edmonton a ridiculous amount of money for this 0.47 acre piece of land that's developed with a 12,000 square foot building. I don't get garbage service here. I don't get
what?
No, I have to pay. I have to contract a garbage taker away. I pay extra because I have a recycling bin here. We will only see a snowplow on this street, and I swear to all things holy, I will not see a snowplow more than 2 times a year. I have to plow my yard, but my street won't get done, so I plow my street at the same time. We don't have, we don't get a single service. Now, yes, we're the beneficiary of having, police and ambulance and the rest if something happens to happen here, but we're also citizens of this city.
Yeah.
We'd have that anyway. So we do a lot of contribution, and we don't get any, you drove on my street. My street is if you compare my street to one that you'd find in Fallujah, it's no different. And the city, in their infinite wisdom, they paved this street last year, but they only paved the second half of the street, and they patched the part of my, it's so ridiculous. They could have just done it and been done with it, but no. And they'll come back in 2 years and they'll do a bit more, and they'll come back and do it. So it's maddening where they choose to direct money and where they don't. But again.
And I brought this up countless times. I didn't think we should go down the civic path, because I know you and I both have very strong opinions about this. But I brought this up on my show countless times. And I'm starting a bit with this guy that does a lot of work behind the scenes to uncover how the city spends money, because it's all public record. Right. So you just have to have the wherewithal and the patience to read the stuff, and you can learn a lot, right?
Our mill rates go up, and our rates go up, and we end up getting less and less.
Yeah, and there's a lot to it, but I think we're going to have a weekly segment on the locker room where we talk about this stuff with this guy Jason Bale. And you can get into weeds on this. This is generational again, and this is back to the work ethic. Your boss is out to get you. Don't give them as little as you possibly can.
Yep.
That mindset is also that type of mindset also wants everything and doesn't really care about the cost of it.
Correct.
Right?
But somebody else pays for it.
We want all these shiny things, and there's very little concern about how much anything costs. It's just like, oh, that's nice. Like, we need that. Vancouver has that. Toronto has that. Calgary has that. Edmonton should have that.
Yeah.
And so we put money into these budgets, and I don't know if we always get the best deal for our dollars, because I think a lot of these deals are, anyway, we don't need to go down that path. But I 7% increase in property taxes, not for businesses, but for the average citizen in Edmonton, is ridiculous.
Yep.
When you take a look at the plans they have for the money they already have, and there's a lot of things you can do to cut back what they're spending, and they wouldn't have to increase it. And that's this Jason guy that I'm at. He actually has a paper written about how the cuts they could make and cleaning up things, and to save that 7%.
I've said forever that Edmonton is a city that has big city envy but small town vision.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's,
oh my God,
that's the way
I'm going to steal that.
You can have it. I've got it on record that I gave it to you, but because this is about you today, not about me, even though I tend to get on rampages. I want to go back to radio though, because part of what I try and do here is get behind the scenes, and I want to uncover things that people wouldn't necessarily know or hear.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, let me ask my question.
Yeah.
You don't have to just volunteer.
I thought you were just telling me to dig something up.
No. I have a whole list.
Yes, Paul Brown's a dick.
Well, so I'll get back to my point in a second. I happen to catch now the secondary thing that you do in addition to the locker room on Cruise FM here in Edmonton is you do the podcast with the Dean Blundell show on Prior Media. And yesterday, you guys had exotic massage. I can't remember Emily
Muse
and you
Muse spas in Toronto.
Yeah, and you had started talking about a coworker that, because you were talking about butt stuff, and coworker said, wait a second, you telling me you never masturbated with a dildo in your ass before? Now, you ended up, when you said that, I had to go through my repertoire of people that we knew. I'm like, oh, that's got to be Paul Brown. That has to be Paul Brown.
Yeah, I had that conversation with him. He was verklempt. He didn't understand how I wasn't into that, and that doesn't everybody do this? It was
he's
a unique individual, right?
He certainly was, which is what I wanted to get back to with, without throwing Paul under the bus. You've been in radio a long time. Who are the better people you've worked with, and who are the worst people you worked with?
Well, I've had the pleasure of working with some really, really talented and really, really funny people, and a lot of times that comes with a certain amount of dysfunction. And so some of my favorite shows are like that Paul Brown, that Yukon Jack Paul Brown show was funny. Those two worked really well together.
With the right sex appeal with Jill in the background.
With Jill too, yeah, that was a great show, and I always had a lot of appreciation. Like Paul Brown and I did not see eye to eye behind the scenes, and we were wired very, very differently, and so that didn't work. He didn't get me at all, and I let him know when I thought he was taking advantage of people in the building, and blah blah blah. We don't need to go down there, but yeah, that was a complicated relationship. But
so in one sentence, you said they were the best and the worst.
Oh, Paul was a nightmare. Well,
but he was funny.
He was very funny. But I think what ended up happening is that relationship over time splintered, and then it became very difficult to manage, and so it eventually broke apart. So you see these very strong personalities in our business, right? And you kind of have to be, or it'll eat you alive. And to be fair, you also have to be a big personality to be entertaining, I think, on some level, right? And so you work with some very interesting people. There's a lot of selfishness. There's a lot of narcissism in our business, and I have a good dose of both of those things. I have been, like, just from a personal perspective, I've had a couple of things that didn't work, but I've also worked with some of the best broadcasters in the country. I loved my show in Winnipeg with Philly the Kid, and he's on 92 City FM now in Winnipeg, the rocker there, and he's got a great show. And man, I loved my time with him. But we had our struggles, right? I was a very dominant personality, and him and I clashed on some things, right? So he's better off without me on his own. And then when I was at the Bear with Warren and Jimmy, I thought that was a great show. But it was different than what I'm doing now. There was a lot less preparation. It was way more off the cuff. It was phones. And now nobody calls the radio station. It's all text. It's all social media communication. So it's difficult to get the phones going, and even if it's an afternoon drive show. But so the engagement piece is different. You have to adapt to that. But I am so lucky to work with the people that I work with. And don't get me wrong, we drive each other crazy, and we have our moments. But man, I'm blessed to have the show that I have now. This is the best version of the locker room I've ever put out there. To have Jimmy, who is just Jimmy. Yeah. I don't need to explain him. Like,
he's a great dude.
I've
got a funny little side story. I'll never forget the moment I met Jimmy. Like, I knew of him on the radio, but I never met him face to face. And you had invited me out to a thing. You were doing a Monday Night Football at an establishment that no longer exists on the West End by West Edmonton Mall.
What was that place called?
The Tilted Kill.
Tilted Kill, yes. Yeah.
I wasn't going to give him a plug, but anyway.
They're gone.
Well, and there's like 6 people watching this right now, so it's not really a plug, but I came in, I think it was actually after a karting event. No, it wouldn't have been. But I came in and, sat down, and within about 3 minutes, Jimmy was pretty buckled at the time.
Yeah, it's common. It's quite common.
But I didn't know him from anyone. I can be a smartass for sure. I am a smartass all the time, and from time to time, I can not be a smartass once in a while.
Yeah.
And we sat down, and I don't think Warren was there. I think it was just you and Jimmy, and I can't remember. There was a third person, and within 3 minutes, Jimmy was saying, "You don't like what I got to say, I'm going to come over the end of this table." And he was like trying to fight. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, I get along great with Jimmy now. Like, I've got to know him a little bit. I think he's got to know me a little bit. But he was this angry little dude. But that's also going back, 10, 12 years.
None of that's changed. Well, and I want to give Grant a plug, because honestly, I swear, I have never worked with anybody funnier.
I agree.
He is the funniest man I think I've...
Like, deceptively funny.
Yes. Very dry, very quick wit. But, man, we're so lucky to have the chemistry that we have. And,
But when he gets, like, I got to go to, Grant did a birthday party at somewhere downtown. I can't remember which one it was.
We were at a bar. Yeah, I remember that.
On the 109th. And
might have been his 30th. He's a young kid.
Yeah, he's a baby.
Just a sprout.
Yeah, but he's also, side note on Grant, he's also, like, married into a family, and, like, married into, like, got pre-existing kids, and, like, whoa.
But he just got married, and they just had their first, but there's 3 in the house.
Yeah.
Crazy change with him.
That's a man to be able to, I couldn't do that.
You know what? And he had a very difficult dating sort of life as well. It wasn't smooth for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any stories. I don't remember anything. He said this to me. Like, he felt that he didn't like the dating thing, right? So I think he had only a handful of girlfriends since I've known him.
Yeah.
And then when he met Mac, it was just like, all right, this is it. They
Yeah,
moved in right away. So it was just the right time, the right girl, and she's awesome. Mac is unbelievable.
He's a guy I don't know well,
Yeah.
but I feel like I know him well. Like,
yes,
we've only had
he's very quiet in
half
public.
a dozen interactions, but I really get the sense of who he is. But like during his birthday party, this guy, like, he's a personality. He's on the radio. Like, you know, obviously you know how to communicate and create something that's entertaining, whether it's a story or a joke or whatever.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he busts out some Creed karaoke, and it's like, okay, now I know who this guy is. Like, that was awesome.
And he's been doing that for years before it was cool.
Oh yeah. No, I think he invented that.
When I actually gave him credit for that, inventing the Creed thing the other day, when we were talking about it, because Creed is turned into a thing. They're touring and everything, and I'm like, this is because of you. Like, he used to do Creed karaoke when we went on those trips. That first trip we went to Jamaica.
Yeah.
He was in the bar that night, the night we landed, doing karaoke for a whole bunch of Jamaican wait staff and a bunch of loser radio people from all over North America. And it was funny, and he fell off the table. And the thing with me and working with me is that I'm a steamroller, right?
Yeah.
So I get going and I plow through. So when when I do the show, I'm trying to lead it, right?
Yeah.
When I do the podcast with Dean, this is why I enjoyed podcasting so much, is because I've had to.
Dean's running that thing.
Dean's and he's a way better driver than I am, right? Than even I am on my show. So I'm the follower. So I've got to find my spots. And so working with Dean has made me a better broadcaster. But I got to tell you, knowing what it takes to work with somebody like me and do that job where you're trying to find your spots, I've never worked with anybody or heard anybody in rock radio anyway that is better at picking their spots and hitting. Like, he'll say stuff I even miss.
Yeah.
Like, I'll catch it a day later.
Yeah.
In the replay.
Or somebody will send you a note and say, holy moly. Like,
he's so good at just like finding his holes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
he's the best I've ever worked with at that.
That's the biggest thing about comedy is timing.
Oh, absolutely.
Is like knowing how to say it, when to say it. And, and he's got that knack of just, kind of, he's the opposite of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're kind of, like you said, you're the steamroller, and he's just, he's like a jackhammer.
You'll see it when we are not together, the three of us. And Jimmy's there. He's not a driver. He's not playing Grant's role. He's not filling content, but his contribution is invaluable to the show. And so the show, if it's just Grant and I, just is not the same.
Yeah.
Is it worth listening to? Yeah, for sure it is. It's Grant and Jimmy. It's not the same show, right? Grant's not there. Jimmy and I, we're just yelling at each other.
Yeah.
Like, we've got this mix, and I've been very lucky. I've had fire in a bottle a couple of times in my career. This is one of them. And this one, I'm very happy. Yeah.
In radio, there's a lot of stuff that happens. You get crazy texts, you get crazy callers, you get crazy situations. One of the ones that I remember, and I don't know if it's the wackiest, but one of the stranger situations that I remember you being part of was a caller called Charlotte. And she would call, I think she called the radio station accidentally, and she was talking about flying pierogies.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Is that the wackiest, or do you remember something?
No, I've had.
Really?
We had a guy call up one time he accidentally called us, but he was listening to Up, and they were doing a contest. And he was hammered.
Okay.
So he called us.
Thankfully, everyone in that studio speaks.
On the fly, we came up with a contest for him. We just started asking him random questions. And then at the end of it, totally won. And he was so excited. And he was drunk off his tree.
Yeah.
And then we kind of even hung up on him. and I don't know if he ever remembered winning the contest, but we played this contest with him and made him feel like he won, I don't know, whatever, he won a brand new car or something.
But the Charlotte thing, she called multiple times.
Oh, Charlotte, she was insane. For whatever reason, radio is somewhat of a beacon for
the Cuckoos.
For Cuckoos, yeah. I've had everything you can possibly imagine. I had a guy that, and this is partially my lack of ability to control myself, but I actually invited him down to the radio station to fight me.
Oh, I kind of remember that.
Pete, yeah. And yeah, you run into all sorts of crazies.
Yeah.
Like the connection that the radio has with people. I don't know what it is. I love it.
But you hear the same people day in, day out, and you really get the perception that you know them. You know who they are. You know what they do. So you get this idea that, hey, listen, this is Locke. This is Grant. This is Jimmy. This is Paul Brown. This is Gregor. Whoever it is. But you guys don't really show who you are as people on your radio show. You showcase a certain element of it, but not everything.
I don't know. We're probably, out of all the shows you're listening to in this market and across the country that are left on radio, there's a lot of pre-recorded stuff now. I doubt highly you'll have too many shows that are like ours, that we're just sort of amplified versions of ourselves.
Yeah. Question comes
in. A lot of people calling.
Yeah.
Are playing a different version of themselves for a variety of reasons, to fit a demographic, to give people the perception of what they think is going to be successful in this business. There's a lot of people out there that are not really who they are on the radio.
Of course.
And there's, in rock, you can sort of be more yourself. And I've been very lucky that I haven't had to take a path in this business as far as personality goes, where I've had to try to pretend to be something I'm not. It's very unhealthy.
But there's also a fugazi part of radio where there's like on-air conflict and there's on-air controversy that doesn't actually exist. And you've been really good, because I can think of probably half a dozen times where you're doing something on the radio and I send you a note like, is this really what's going on? You're like, no, dude, it's radio. Like, this is for air. This isn't really.
But there are moments, and you'll probably hear way more of them on our show, where you're hearing the real version. There are times where I'm like, I will say behind the scenes, we pull this thread. We're going to do this, right? And Grant's also good at picking up on, like, if I say something horrible, like if I say something that is very controversial, that's going to split the audience, what you need to do as a host sitting across from somebody in a radio situation is you got to quickly represent the audience, the half of the audience that might disagree with the asshole that's making the comment.
Right.
So even if you don't necessarily 100%,
you have to represent.
You kind of got to represent that other side. Yep. So Grant's great at that. If he hears me go off, he might actually agree with me because our values align more often than not. But he takes the other side to keep me to make sure that the other side feels like they got a voice.
Yep.
If it's not, then it's just some 53-year-old dick yelling on the radio about his work.
But then it's one-sided, and it's only interesting to people who are on that side, and that's clever.
So I agree with you, but there are times where you'll hear me legitimately angry at Jimmy.
Oh, for sure.
Legitimately him frustrated with us because we teased him about something he doesn't like to be teased about. Like, that kind of energy comes through on our show way more than a lot of other shows. And the ones that are hiding the shit behind the scenes and the real ones, those ones implode a lot of times quite quickly.
Yeah.
And I think people would be surprised at how few radio shows there are on the air where the people in the room like each other. I'd say actually it's a higher percentage of people not liking each other.
Of course. Yeah. And you've got to pretend. How much
I can do that.
There's a question that's posted here, but I want to get to mine first. Was there any friction between you and the other station in your building when Grant moved from.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you kind of picked him out of there and moved him over.
Well, there's a lot of things that happened, and it had a lot to do with the show I was on previous to the reincarnation of the Locker Room on Cruise, and we actually made an effort to recreate a former locker room that did not work, that fell apart, and it was one of the ideas was to put Grant on with us. And as soon as it was brought up, I said, well, let's give it a try. And as soon as the three of us got in a room, I knew it was going to work.
Yeah.
Because as soon as Grant looked at Jimmy, I could see his mind going. He's like, I can mess with this kid. Like, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw that look on his face, and I saw the fact that Jimmy had no idea it was coming, I knew that it was going to be successful.
Yeah.
At that moment.
That created some animosity with the other station.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure they were not happy about it.
But it's worked out better for everyone.
I would like to say that out loud.
I don't know that, but and candidly, I won't say I know the other two, but I've met the other two and I've had interactions with the other two. I don't listen to that station because that's just not my music.
Well, I hope they've let it go because it's been 7+ years, and he was on that station for like a year, less than a year, I think.
Yeah,
so,
I like them as broadcasters. I think they're really awesome people. I can't listen to that music. It's just not my music. But the fit is really good.
I think the fit that we have supersedes any concerns they may have had. The chemistry that we have and the success that we've had as a trio.
And I can't say I ever listened to their show with Grant.
Yeah.
I don't know how that worked, but the way that they've got it now, I think it works. Like that play between the two of them.
But I think that was also the motivation to remove Grant, because Grant is so good at what he does that he might have been taking away some of the attention that one of the hosts needed on that show. And so I think the idea was, and it was presented to them as this, I think, was that, hey, listen, if we remove Grant from the room, you're going to shine.
Yeah.
And I don't listen to it. I've never heard it, so I don't know. I can't be a judge whether or not that worked.
Yeah.
I'm reaping the rewards of getting a really good broadcaster.
For sure.
Yeah.
Getting back to the Cruise FM world, how much time do you spend on the Grant report?
None.
That's
Absolutely.
all Grant.
I don't write that. Yeah, that's 100% Grant. And he has a system of writing it. Like I prepare our show at night. I'll work 3, 4, sometimes even longer. I work weekends. I put shit down on paper, and then we, take it in every morning. We're a heavily prepped show, even though I might not admit that in public, but we are, and it's a lot of work. But Grant is one of the better writers I've ever worked with. I work with some really good writers in this business, and he is up there definitely. And he doesn't prep that shit ahead of time. He does it on the fly while we're playing tunes.
Yeah.
And I don't question it because
it works.
Because it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah. It was fake news at first, and then we just basically got sick of calling it fake news after the whole Trump thing. So then we just flipped it to his name, right?
Gotcha.
Perfect. Yeah.
Why do you stay in it?
In business?
No, in radio.
I can't do anything else. Like I have zero skills. Like I hope Danny's hiring when they fire me. Like I've been doing this since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like I moved to Vancouver. I was there by the time I was 20, and I got into radio school. I got my first job at 24. So when I was in radio school, I was doing the service industry. I was working at some bars. I was bartending, waiting tables. I did a room service gig at the Pan Pacific Hotel, but I had no aspirations to do anything else other than radio. So from a young age.
Pan Pacific, you're talking about the one like on the water?
Yeah, the sales.
I had a room booked there. That's the one hotel I want to stay at. I travel around the world.
It's a great hotel.
I can tell you about almost every city in the world. I had a room booked. We were doing a family vacation, and my grandfather died.
Oh, damn it.
So
you should try to go back there. Get a suite.
I will. I've stayed at both Fairmonts there. I've stayed stayed in that area. My now ex-wife and my kids got to stay there with my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
And they got to tell me about that hotel. So that just kills me a little bit.
It's pretty cool.
Excuse me. Is there a worst part of your job?
I like my job. I really do.
I always say the text line's got to be the worst.
I appreciate the connection. I wish we had more phones. Like I wish people called more now, but that's sort of the thing in the past. And all jobs are saying that. Everybody who's doing it as long as I have been misses the phones. Worst part. I mean, I'm up early, but I don't even mind that. I kind of like that, getting my day going. There is, in this business right now, there is a lot of, we're in kind of a transition period, right? We had the consolidation, big business bought up radio, and there's been a lot of like people that have lost, pretty valuable careers in this business, get, pushed to the wayside. So that's been hard to watch. And right now we're kind of at a point where radio is, I mean, if you talk to Dean, he's talking about the end of times and all that. I don't agree with that. I think radio is always going to be around. But right now we're at a low point, and I think the people that are left who are dealing with working way more than they should because of the consolidation, there's a lot of thought in how to fix it. I just don't know if we have the manpower, and I don't know if everybody's on the same page right now to fix what it is that's wrong with radio, right? But it's interesting times, and people are trying things.
But it's also an opportunity, because if you hit on the right thing,
yes,
you get to take leaps and bounds over.
Well, and we've stopped having the conversation about, podcasting is a waste of time. Why would you do that? Blah, blah, blah. To now people in radio going, okay, no, podcasting is actually very valuable, and you should be doing this. And so that's kind of where we're at now. And we got people that are in control, that have the levers, that are pulling, making the decisions behind the scenes. They are realizing that radio needs to adapt. And so that we're in the middle of that adapting.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part right now, because there's a little bit of chaos in the building. But what I've done over my career is I've been good at sort of deflecting what it is that's happening around me. I try not to let it impact the show and what we do on a daily basis. So, I've always sort of, the imagery and the metaphor that I use, that we put a bubble over the show, and I kind of treat my show like my own little radio station. Right now, I'm in a process of, peeking my head out of that bubble now and letting people in to help me with it. And it's been going well. And I'm excited about the future. And I'm excited about the fact that now there's a conversation about the pros and cons of radio and the pros and cons of podcasting, and how do those two worlds meet. And I think you're going to see a lot of integration, especially on the online side. Well, you already are. That's a stupid comment, but I'm even more so from radio. You're going to see us adapting into the podcast world. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm so excited about going home in the afternoons and taking a break from doing prep and sitting down for an hour and a half with Dean on a podcast. Right?
Well, and that's funny, because you are entirely responsible for what we're doing right now. I wouldn't be doing this if it hadn't been for you just over a year ago.
Yeah.
When, I sent you a note and said, hey, listen, we're doing some prep and we're doing some promo for a race. Do you want to get Alex in on the morning show? And you're like, well, I don't know that he really plays on the morning show for what we're doing, but we should get you on the podcast. Like, what's a podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, I got this thing with this guy, and let's get it lined up. We got it lined up. Alex didn't show up. I did the podcast.
Yeah.
And from there, started talking to Dean, and Dean, turned it into something, and then and here we are, just over a year later.
Yeah.
And it's all because of you. So,
well,
you're the one to blame, or you're the one to thank. I don't know what it is.
I appreciate what it is that I'm learning from podcasting, and I appreciate what I've learned about radio. And I think that the fact that there is that sort of that period of time we're going through right now, it's a bit of a transition thing. I think the two worlds, I've said this to Dean, I said there's a lot that radio can learn from podcasting, and there's a lot that podcasting can learn from radio, right? And so
he's got his own personal bias, and he's got his own personal
Dean
stuff
now,
that he drags along.
Even Dean has started to realize, right, that after having done what he's done with Crier, that there was elements of radio that he took with him, and
of course.
So he shits on radio more for a bit, right? Because he's in podcasting now, right?
Yeah.
And I got my foot in both worlds, and enjoy what it is I get from both worlds. Right?
Yeah. Well, and you're teamed up. You've got great partners everywhere you're at.
Oh God,
Grand Jimmy, and then with Dean, and
I got something going on with Dean too. I think we have a real strong chemistry on that podcast. I think we do.
I think so. I mean, you tend to be the more outrageous guy, which is kind of funny knowing what Dean's history is. And then Dean's kind of kind of almost like the mediator.
Yeah.
You get to kind of stir the shit, and Dean gets to kind of point it back in the right direction.
Yeah. And again, it's a different format, and it's a different, you're sort of exercising a different muscle, but it's the same thing, But
it's just it's entertainment. It's trying to tell a story in a way that people have heard it 1,000 times, but in a way that they want to hear it 1,001, and then think that they heard it for the first time. That's the trick.
What we're doing right now is not easy, and there's a lot. I mean, I'm not trying to make us.
For me, it is, because I just say a thing and then I sit back and I nod a lot.
Well, you're not giving yourself enough credit.
I don't need to.
The podcast
today's about you.
The podcast is not easy to do, and there's a lot of really bad ones out there. And the podcast industry is in a big transition too, because there's too many of them, and there isn't the business structure around it right now to make it sustainable on any level. That's different in the States. There's a real strong commerce and structure and dedication to putting out consistent stuff. In Canada, we're getting there. There are groups that are starting to make this a viable career path, right? I ran into somebody that had a kid that was wanted to get into radio, went to radio school, didn't actually get into radio, and is on a podcast.
Yeah.
And I know about this kid, and I know what he's doing right now, and he's in with a good group.
Yeah.
And the parent, we were golfing with them, and they told me who their kid was, and I was like, oh
I know that guy.
Yeah, he's doing really well. Yeah. And they're like, really? Yeah. Well, we're really concerned because he's on a podcast. He never did the radio thing. And I went, oh no, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
He'll be good. He's gonna make a go of this.
But radio is limited to a market. It's limited to a day of time. Are you the drive guy? Are you the midday? Are you the morning guy? Like the podcast thing, it lives on forever. It's accessible to everyone. And now that you can take your thing and put it on Spotify and Apple Music, and I don't even know where these things go. I have no idea, because we've got great people at Crier that take these things and they post them.
See, and I have a better idea, because we put our stuff out every morning as a podcast. We take the show, we cut it up, and we do it best up, right? And there's even a conversation about shifting gears on that and doing that differently. But the one thing about getting your voice, I have people contacting me that never listen to the show live and contact me daily about the locker room because they listen to the podcast.
Really?
Yeah. So your point of being it's if you're driving around the city, there's a copy of what we're doing on a podcast form. So if you're not up at 7 o'clock in the morning and you're a locker room fan, you can listen to the podcast later in the day, right? So and there's value in that, and the idea of how radio is sold too is going to shift. I think there's going to be a movement in the next, I don't know, maybe I'd say maybe even 5 years from now, where how it's rated, traditional terrestrial radio, is going to shift more to a digital format, and there's going to be more value about impressions and listens online, or as much value as the traditional way that this thing is measured and sold on the radio.
Yeah, but all you need is a decent signal. You need a decent, you don't need to build a studio. You don't need to build towers. You don't for me, and I am not an expert, I don't know the ins and outs, and maybe what I'm saying is not correct, but I believe that the trick to getting podcasting to matching what radio is doing, or even surpassing radio, is that it's got to be more readily available in the car.
Yes, and it's getting there.
Of course, but it's not like cars have radios and you can program their yes, you can do that very easily with apps and with this, but it just isn't.
They're making
natural.
Cars without radios now.
Yeah.
So so that transition's happening.
It is, but until it does,
we have people listening to us call.
Yeah.
from everywhere. In the morning, we get that text line. We get hundreds of texts. And we have people listening to us from right across the country. We have the guy in Mexico that tunes in every morning. We've had people from Australia tuning us in because we're the drive show. Like we're online. You can listen to our show live on the webpage and then the podcast.
And you get the radio player app and you get through.
Yeah. So times have changed. And I think radio over the years has done a pretty decent job. I mean, right now, again, we're in sort of this valley, I think, with the business and how we're viewed, right, in the world of broadcasting. But we've survived every death knell that they've thrown at radio, right? For years, they've been calling for the end of radio. When they made the cassette, and then CD, and then satellite radio, and we've kind of hung in there. So I again, like I said, we're in the valley right now, but I don't think nobody
Radio's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
it's not going anywhere.
Nobody is counting a set, right?
Not yet.
Yeah.
So I have to thank you so much for all the time you give me. I've got my last question for you, and then we can wrap this up.
Perfect.
What is the biggest misconception of either you as a person or like what you do as a radio personality that you constantly have to correct people?
Well, like I said, I'm a pretty good example. Like who I am, I think people would be surprised at, like, I'm a bit of an introvert, and I sort of tend to be very comfortable in my own skin at home, right? I don't have any anxiety or anything like that about going out and doing social event. But if you give me the option, I'm going to stay home.
Yeah.
And I think people think that, if you're radio, you're an extra. There's a lot of introverts in this business. Like it's actually more common to have. Like Grant's an introvert. Jimmy is not. He's an extrovert.
Yeah.
So you run into a lot of that type of personality, and I think that's would surprise people. Plus, I'm a great guy.
Well, honestly, you kind of stepped on me, but I think a lot of people maybe think that you have a real asshole tendency.
I can be a dick, and I can defend myself.
Everyone can, but I know a lot of the stuff that you do behind the scenes. I know like who you are as a person, and you're really a good guy.
Well, I appreciate it.
I'm not saying that because you're here. I'm saying that because it's true, and that's part of the
I appreciate
correcting misconceptions.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people. I mean, you're known as a business guy. I don't think people know you. You know what I mean? So there's probably a perception of who you are outside of this building.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
People can think whatever. Like one of my favorite expressions is people's opinion of you is none of your business.
Yeah. There you go. That's a good way to wrap up.
Right. I'm going to shut you off. I'm going to do my close and then we'll.
All right. I'm going to go find your bathroom.
Well, you could have waited till I turned your stuff off. But, all right. Whatever. Locker. Really good guy. What is Mike talking about? Tendencies. I don't know what you mean, Mike. That's it. That's another Thursday Talkin' Torque. Next week, got another interesting guest. Need to triple confirm before I bring him in. Going to be from a part of my life. It's going to be a personal contact, but from part of my world that is not necessarily torque, is not necessarily racing, but a great dude. We are going to have a great conversation and talk about his life and how we grew up together, how he ended up doing what he's doing in the education system, and looking forward to that. But as always, you can send me a note. Hey there at talkintorque.ca. Reachable on most of the socials. As Locke said, I am no longer on Twitter, but you can get me on Instagram at CL_87. You can get me on Threads. You can get me on LinkedIn. But looking forward to next week's show, and thanks for tuning in.